Hey everyone, I thought I'd give you a bit of a quick update on my armour at the moment. It doesn't really work very well with the screws in at the moment, mostly because the tension on there is too much, but it needs a lot of work, and I'm thinking about redoing that whole compression articulation section, which is going to be a bit weird doing that after all of this, but I don't know. It works, but I don't know. Maybe I'll just end up doing the other arm completely different. I ended up having to wear it further down the arm than I originally intended, so it's all way too wide. So I think I might have to change the compression articulation to allow me to wear it a bit further up the arm. Well, that, and there's some issues with trying to get the gambeson to fit under it properly. I might end up putting some holes in the end of the van brace and having leather straps going through the gambeson so I can pull the gambeson's sleeve up through the armour, then tie them off to keep them in place. But you may be noticing this weird configuration. Yes, that is plate armour in the armpit. One of those things that supposedly can't be done. I based this on the Henry VIII foot combat armour. I think it was the year 1520 for the Field of Cloth of Gold tournament. And I got an old article written on it that explains the parts of it and talks about the armpit armour and how it was attached and describes it. Not in the greatest detail, I wish there were more pictures, and it's academic terminology from about 100 years ago, so it's a bit tricky at times to figure out what they're talking about, or what the author is talking about. One thing is, after rereading it again, I think he says that the bottom lane of the articulated plates underneath the armpit, I think they've got holes for riveting to lining or something, which I think that's what he said, but that kind of doesn't make much sense. Why would you just tie them off instead of riveting them? And if they were riveted, why are they not riveted now? Why are they just holes? So I don't know, but from what I gather, I think the armpits are actually stitched to your gambeson, like you lace them up when you do, when you lace up a spalder or a pauldron. I think it's similar to that, and that just is attached to the gambeson and moves around freely underneath, well, not entirely freely, but moves around inside your breastplate. So that gives it more mobility like that. However, what I'm planning on doing is I'm planning on using sliding rivets and having an extra lane that's kind of like that to cover that gap a bit better, and of course on the other side as well, so that it basically slides in underneath. Similar to an anime breastplate, though I believe those just articulate in, they don't slide in normally. I might have seen somewhere one with sliding rivets. I can't so recall, but for this one I want to have sliding rivets. So if you don't know what an anime breastplate is, you can look up. Eric did a lacquer necked breastplate. However you pronounce that, I don't know, I'm probably butchering the pronunciation. If you look up armor tutorials, you'll probably find him. He does a breastplate that they rotate around 2 rivets to give it a little bit more flexibility that way, but I want to have sliding rivets so it slides in under and compresses, and then when you bring your arm back out, it pulls it back out with it. Very complicated. And yes, this white bit here, that's just a stand-in. There's going to be several articulating lanes of steel in there. That's just a bit of PVC pipe to make sure I've got the length and everything right, and I can pop that on there and make sure it all there's all the right proportions and stuff, which is just, you know, something you can't do with cardboard, and it's a lot easier to do it quickly with just a piece of scrap PVC pipe than it is to do with a piece of steel that may not be worth anything afterwards. Very cheap too. But yeah, just thought I'd give you that little update. And this would be moving a lot easier on me. It's just that lane and that lane. What they are, those kind of telescope around inside of each other. The one on the arm has a rolled edge going outwards. The one that's on the shoulder and above it has a rolled edge on the inside. And they wrap around each other, and at the moment they're a little too tight so they can't move, but I got them working so that they're loose enough that they can rotate and slide inside of each other fine, but not pop out. And that's so I can have that movement. I've got a very long process, and it's ridiculously overly complex, but that's the kind of armouring I'm into. I'd love to do some other armouring projects. I'd love to, you know, just do something so I can go, wow, finally I finished a piece. But that would still leave this uncompleted. I'm tempted to just, you know, do a quick suit of armour or some quick arms with some basic articulation, or maybe even just floating cops just so I can post a video. And just because, you know, it's a nice quick project compared to this monster. Or maybe some helmets. It's all good fun. I just love working at the anvil on some steel. Oh, and if you're wondering how I did these armpit articulations, it's mostly sliding rivets, which jam because they got screws on them at the moment, as opposed to nice smooth rivets or nails. But when you reach forwards, they all slide out, which gives you several degrees extra movement. But the original Henry VIII foot combat armour, from the report I read on it, apparently it had some mobility restriction issues with the arms and they couldn't move very far. So I'm expanding on that and putting this on sliding rivets to compress inside of the breastplate, though perhaps just having it laced to the gambeson you're wearing underneath would have a similar or possibly even better result. Don't know, I'm just doing experimental armour, but yeah, it's loosely riveted with a leather washer on the front with sliding rivets on the back, and there's 6 lanes there, and it's hard to put it all on, and they just ram that center lane as far into your armpits. So, right, that's not on. That's not really on properly. So you have that plus it's going to be bigger than that, and slides. So you get that to about there, and of course it goes up and down. But it'll work a lot better when it has stuff holding it in place and isn't flopping around, hopefully. Lots and lots of tweaking to do. Oh, and yes, each one of these lanes flares out. They're all curved so that they can slide along those sliding rivets and not lock out because it's trying to get too wide or too narrow, and that also helps it flare out. Instead of being just the circumference of the arm, nicely flares out so it's the circumference of your chest, or side of your chest. As well as, and they're slightly dished, which of course adds extra strength to the plates because means there's less of a gap between them. I tried doing it with just flat, with just curved and no dishing, but then when I dished it, they fit together so much better. Smaller gaps, smoother articulation, and of course, when there's a bit of a curve to a plate, that makes it harder to form, so it's even tougher now that it's got a bit of a curve to it. Alright everyone, hope you enjoyed this video. See you.